Hello, welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Odisha is playing host to the 18th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, the congregation of the Indian Diaspora. The theme of this year's event was focused on the diaspora's contribution to ensuring a developed India or a Viksit Bharat by 2047. The event kicked off with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calling upon Indians residing abroad to play an active role in the country's development. Speaking at the event, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the journey of the Indian diaspora across different eras to various countries. He also emphasized that the Indian government is ensuring upskilling of youth who are travelling abroad. The Prime Minister also remotely flagged off the Pravasi Bharatiya Express, a special tourist train for the diaspora. The train will start its 3-week journey from Delhi and will travel to multiple tourist and religious destinations across the country. As of May 2024, there are approximately 36 million Indians residing overseas, making it the world's largest overseas diaspora.
आने वाले कई दशकों तक भारत दुनिया का सबसे यंग और स्किल्ड पॉपुलेशन वाला देश बना रहेगा। ये भारत ही है जहां से दुनिया की एक बड़ी स्किल डिमांड पूरी होगी।
So how can India use this to leverage the current global order and rise up to the China +1 opportunity? Joining me now to take this forward are Indronil Sengupta, co-founder and CEO at Invesify Vietnam. He's also the chairman at the India-Vietnam Business Forum. We also have with us Prabakaran Parameswaran, member of the Parliament in Malaysia. He is the youngest MP in Malaysia. We also are joined by Mr. Hambyrajen Narsinghen, Junior Minister for Foreign Affairs in Mauritius Rahul Fotedar, founder of Morrow Batteries in Norway. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Parameswaran, give us a sense of what are the takeaways for you in terms of the India growth story and the potential of India as an economy. Today, India wants to play a bigger role in global value chains. What's your thought on what India needs to do going forward and what maybe Malaysia and India can do together?
Vanakkam and namaste, sir. I am really excited for this Pravasi. I'm still here. And of course, this excitement does not start now. It was a few months back where I visited Delhi with the delegates from Malaysia and led by my Prime Minister, Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim. Basically, that visit was to strengthen the bilateral relationship in many aspects, including trades, including supply chains, including technology exchanges. And like I said, this Pravasi and my visit here is very important to understand the economic sectors or rapidly evolving economy of India and how to strengthen the Malaysian relationship, bilateral relationship with India. And of course, the visit, my visit together with my other diaspora, including the digital minister, has told us that the recent visit has, it was so vital for Malaysia. We did create a new task force with India, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, to look after the relationship between Malaysia and India, whereby the trades, the technology exchanges, the education, and a lot of innovation sectors, renewable energy of the exchange between Malaysia and India will be enhanced smoothly. So I'm really happy this platform has given us an important role to work together with India, the government of India. And also by looking at Malaysia, we also have diverse population, religion, and we need to look up to India and learn a lot of things, how to become like India.
Right. Let me also get an Indronil Sengupta at this point. Mr. Sengupta, you've spent a considerable amount of time working with companies in India and Vietnam. Today, when we look at the shift in trade, shift in supply chains, the China +1 opportunity, China remains the biggest exporter in the world and is likely to continue being the biggest exporter, according to McKinsey. But at the same time, the shift in trade patterns is happening. The beneficiaries at this point seem to be Indonesia and Vietnam in a big way. India too is benefiting, but not as much as Indonesia and Vietnam. After having spent this time and hearing policy makers over the last 3 to 4 days, what do you think India needs to do better?
Thank you for inviting me. The question which you asked is quite pertinent, and most of the shift, the China Plus One has gone to Vietnam. Just to be, put things under perspective, Vietnam was already a preferred destination for MSMEs before even this China Plus One strategy started kicking in. Now, what Vietnam has done differently and where India can learn a little bit and sort of contextualizing it. Two things. One is the incredible success story of the industrial parks and the industrial zones, which Vietnam has developed. And why I'm saying it's a success story, because there are like 1,000 of them across Vietnam. And if a MSME wants to, invest in Vietnam, that company just needs to find out the right industrial park, depending on its sort of raw material logistics cost and supply chain cost, and pay the lease rentals and start the production in 3 to 6 months' time. This gives an impetus to these industries to choose Vietnam as a preferred destination for the ease of starting the business. Now, it doesn't have to go through a rigmarole of licensing, this, that, and all. I mean, the one-stop. And I'm glad I saw recently that Prime Minister Modi also announced a similar rollout of industrial parks across India also. That's one. The second one, which Vietnam has done it a little differently from others. So Vietnam is a signatory to the maximum number of FTAs in ASEAN, apart from Singapore. And while Singapore does not, Singapore encourages only high-end manufacturing. So this gives, again, sort of incentive for the investors to move to Vietnam, because through these FTAs, it covers almost 50% of the global GDP.
Right.
The cost of delivery in terms of import duty and all will be minimal if they manufacture from Vietnam and then export it. So these two factors, I think, puts Vietnam a little ahead of other countries.
Absolutely. It already had a very strong electronic manufacturing base, and therefore it is benefiting. And possibly India can see a few examples there. Let me go across to Rahul Fotedar. Rahul, you're heading an important organization in Norway called Morrow Batteries. Norway is a country which has led the EV transition. It has almost made a full transition to EVs in terms of registrations. If you look at the numbers for last year, it's almost 96% or 97% of the cars which were registered were EVs. India is trying to make sure it can also win the EV transition globally. It can be an exporter of electric vehicles, electric vehicle components, a trusted supply chain partner. As someone who is of Indian origin, someone who's seen the Norway story very closely, what recommendation would you have for India to do better in electric vehicles and the electric vehicle global value chains?
Okay, first of all, thanks for having me. So it was a pleasure to be here the last couple of days and to meet other people and to listen to everybody. Now, coming to your question, I think, yes, Norway has a remarkable adoption of EVs, but there is a certain nuance there. I mean, Norway does not really produce a lot of components for EVs. It's actually just, as we say, buys a lot of EVs. So I think that the transition for kind of making people buy EVs has been stimulated by very specific policies, where there was taxes which were abolished on EVs. There was parking incentives. People could drive in toll-free lanes, etc., etc. And that also, the other factor was it is already being there for more than a decade. So this whole thing we are seeing now has not started yesterday. Right. So these incentives are in place for almost a decade now. And now, of course, we see, when people see the experience of others, and then they kind of get encouraged and more infrastructure is built. I mean, charging is also one of the big kind of constraints in EV adoption. But like somebody said, charging and EVs are like chicken and egg. You need more EVs for chargings to pop up, and you need more chargings. The more charging stations then helps EVs to kind of be bought. So that whole cycle has perpetuated in Norway. But then coming to your other question about how can India is very different than Norway. I think we need to kind of chart our own way. And India has really this potential to be not only a EV kind of consumption market, but actually a EV production market. And for that, I mean, we need to basically look holistically from mine to basically to the final motor which goes in the car. How do we control every single aspect of the whole EV supply chain? And I think, again, we have to look at China, which has made this transition the most successfully. This electrical vehicle transition is not going to happen overnight. So the government of India and the large Indian enterprises have to strategically look at what kind of industries they need to go into, what kind of technologies they need to be mastering, and step by step build capacities and competence. I think this is the way to do it. I mean, there are players in India. Mahindra has some very good EVs. Tata is bringing up, but still the number of models are too little. So in comparison to China, we're still dependent on external technologies, battery technology. We don't have motor technology. So all of those things, both upstream and downstream, all of that supply chain has to be mature so that India actually can stand on its own.
All right, Rajan Narsinghen, Indronil Sengupta, Rahul Fotedar and Mr. Prabakaran, just stay on with us. We are taking a short break on this special program, but we'll be right back on Global Eye. Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye, and our focus is on the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas and how the Indian diaspora can play a bigger role in India's growth story and India becoming a Viksit Bharat or a developed country by 2047. Joining us right now is Indronil Sengupta, co-founder and CEO at Invesify Vietnam. He's also the chairman at INCAM, the Vietnam-India Industry Chamber. We also have with us Prabakaran Parameswaran, member of the Parliament in Malaysia. He's the youngest MP, became an MP at the age of 22. We also have Hambyrajen Narsinghen, who is the junior foreign minister in Mauritius. Rahul Fotedar, founder of Morrow Batteries in Norway, also with us. Mr. Narsinghen, if I can come to you, as a member of the Indian diaspora, could you give us a sense of where you hail from in India and in terms of closer ties between Mauritius and India? What would be your roadmap or your vision, something that the two countries can address in the days to come?
I think you ask a question how India can do better. I'm not here to give lessons. In fact, I'm learning a lot from your Prime Minister and your Minister of Foreign Affairs and your Chief Minister in Odisha. But I just want to tell you that the model of development taken by other countries will have to be different for India. And yesterday itself, we had a very interesting sort of brainstorming on sustainable development. And you see, India, when we look at that relationship between Mauritius and India, Mauritius is a very small dot in the Indian Ocean. But what you Indian people will have to realize that Mauritius is a gateway to Africa. And Africa is the continent of tomorrow and the present continent, where there is a lot of space for development. But as a new person in politics, I believe in a sort of equitable development. This is important. There is no need to follow other models which we had in the past from some among the Western countries. And in fact, I'm glad to have on this platform, TV platform today, our friend from Norway. So if we look at the Nordic model, I think this is an interesting model of development and collaboration with developing countries. And I think to a great extent, India has to look at that direction. And in fact, when you look at Mauritius, we are sort of a small dot, but a hub towards Africa. So India will have to think more how we can penetrate the African market, but in a very equitable and sustainable manner. Don't do like others. This is very important. And right now, after this forum in Odisha for the PBD, I will travel to Chennai. In fact, my ancestors hail from Tamil Nadu. So I will be attending a business forum and also which will have a focus on tourism. Right. So we have a lot of plan, for a number of years. Your NRIs coming from different countries, from Western countries, they have been routing investment to India, and they have been using our what you call global business center. And fortunately, what has happened also, there has been a lot of unjustified criticisms.
Right.
And in the wake of these criticisms, unjustified, and I don't think and some were meant to do harm to that double taxation agreement which we had, and it has been diluted. And in that process of dilution, what has happened also, this has slowed down the movement of capital from the West to India. And yesterday, I had an opportunity to have a very, very interesting discussion with your Foreign Affairs Minister, and a 3-minute fleeting talk with the Prime Minister. And your Prime Minister has invited my Prime Minister to be in India. We have a new Prime Minister in Mauritius, who was Prime Minister before, who has a very strong vision for Africa. Right. And he wants to consolidate the relationship between Mauritius and India. Right. So we are relying a lot on this future visit of Dr. Navin Ramgoolam to India.
Okay.
To boost the relationship. And as I mentioned again, I will hammer on this very important point. Your businessmen from India will have to focus more on Africa. And Absolutely. Also, I think a week back, we had a new Secretary General of the IORA, Indian Ocean Rim. And this, unfortunately, after its infancy stage, now we have to give a new boost to that Indian Ocean Rim, which goes up to Australia. Australia is also a member of the Indian Ocean Rim.
So very important points. You're saying Indian businesses in the Indian government needs to concentrate more on Africa and look at models to penetrate it in a big way, and also look at Indian Ocean Rim countries very closely. Mr. Prabakaran, coming to you, we had seen India-Malaysia ties coming under some political strain under the Mahathir regime. Are things getting better? How can Malaysia and India have closer ties going forward? How do you think India and Malaysia can support each other's development needs?
I think talking about the past, I don't want to comment on that. But the bilateral relationship between Malaysia and India, it does not start recently. It was hundreds and hundreds of years ago where the Indians from India came to Malaysia for trading, workforce and everything. But with the recent appointment of Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, he's been traveling all around, and he's getting more friends and strengthening the bilateral relationship with many other countries. And I feel that India is one of the most important relationships because with India's economy growing, Malaysia can tap on it and get new technologies and new business opportunity, investments, and I can say a lot of advantage in this relationship. And strengthening the bilateral relationship by not only giving them documentations, proposals, but also visiting the leaders and all. Like this opportunity where I went to India, Pravasi as a diaspora, I had enough opportunity to meet the ministers and other diasporas in India to discuss and bring in more opportunities, example like education, skill upliftment, business opportunity, investment. And like I said, comparing India's economy and Malaysia's economy, we are still growing, and we need support from countries like India. Therefore, the relationship, we feel very dear to the relationship and space given by India. And not only that, with the vision of Viksit, I've realized that India is putting in the youth as frontliners. And of course, by the minister's speech, he frequently said that India is a young nation and the majority of the population is young. Therefore, focusing on the young youth development, youth empowerment is really important. And that's what really excites me to see India's development as such. And nation building, of course, the youth is one of the biggest reasons. Like for me, I became an MP when I was 22 years old, and now I'm 28. That is the space and recognition given by the Malaysian government. And by looking at India, which is also empowering the youth by many things, I think we can also follow the policies, the vision which India is following to build a better nation by 2047.
All right, that is a very important and heartening point that you made. Rahul, when it comes to the 2047 roadmap, today the conversation in India is not just about the immediate union budget, which is going to be announced on the 1st of February. It is about how we can win the long-term growth story, have sustained growth, create quality jobs in the country, rise in global value chains, and be a reliable partner. What do you think India needs to do in order to do that? Because currently the entire thinking focus is to chart out a 2047 roadmap.
Okay, so that's a good question. I think the most important thing which India needs to do is to invest invest in education and training. This is something where we kind of underestimate the importance of skilled people. And I mean, we are getting some wins now because we started off at a low level. And I mean, we are building the bridges and the roads and the railway tracks. But once those are built, then how do we sustain that growth? And I think that is a big question policymakers have to think when they're making a plan for the next 25 years. And what we need to see is a really rise in productivity. The thing which 10 people are doing in India now, how can that be done by one single person? And then how can we utilize the other 9 to do other things?
Okay.
And I think that really entails education as a big thing. And like I said, you know, the fact that building a kind of a very comprehensive technology innovation ecosystem doesn't happen overnight. It literally takes decades to do that. So we have to identify areas. It could be green energy, it could be biosciences. I mean, for a country like India, it has to be a very wide scale amount of areas.
Right.
And then we have to build like center of competences around them. And have these very kind of lofty goals, because having small goals could be self-fulfilling in themselves. And I think we can't afford to have small goals. You know, we need to have big goals, have long-term strategy, and have that kind of stability at the high level, which constantly feeds into those goals and keeps everybody accountable towards those goals.
Okay, so we need to have bigger goals. You cannot have small goals and expect to win the battle. Indronil Sengupta, which are the areas where you believe India has the right to win? It has the skill sets, it has the potential, and which sectors can contribute to India's vision of becoming a developed nation by 2047?
Now, what Rahul said, I would add to that, and what Rahul said is a very valid point about the education. The other thing, which it is irrespective of sector, if we want to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047, which is a good timeline to build our all our competencies and capabilities. One of the things which India needs to do, and especially this is for India Inc., which is to invest outside India. How? In the value chain of whichever product or service they are in. There are competitiveness in every different region. So unless and until we own that part of the value chain, will not be globally competitive. So if it means that you have to go and invest in some other country, so be it. So that is something we need to think a little differently. You see the Korean model or even the Chinese model. They have put their investments in different countries. Why? They just take the best out of their investment in terms of either human resource capability or raw material availability, or something which goes to make that product or service competitive. That is something which we should do across the industry.
My final question to Rajan Narsinghen. Mr. Narsinghen, finally, as we wrap, any areas of concern that you would like to lay out for India? Today we see China playing a big role in South Asia, in Africa as well. It is one of the biggest investors. It is investing in some of the biggest infrastructure projects in Africa. Keeping this in mind, what role do you see for India, and what is the concern that you have about the larger relationship between India and the African Union?
I think it's a question of how you want to diversify. Okay, I think India, being in Asia, has been having a sort of more in-depth involvement with Asia, and which was good. But at the same time, I think there has to be more strategic thinking in the direction of Africa.
So much. Thank you so much, Mr. Prabakaran, Rahul Fotedar and Indronil Sengupta for also being with us on the program. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the show. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.